Hi everyone. Today I'm going to walk you through this lab, follow best practices with AWS Trusted Advisor on QA platform, previously known as Cloud Academy. So let's read through this description, then start the lab. AWS Trusted Advisor provides a suite of features for you to help proactively monitor your AWS resources and make customized recommendations. The Trusted Advisor service advises you on the best practices in 4 categories: cost optimization, performance, security, and fault tolerance. In this lab, you will use some of the security and performance checks to implement best practices in AWS. Lab objectives. Upon completion of this lab, you will be able to audit your AWS environment using AWS Trusted Advisor, correct S3 bucket permissions, service limits, and EBS snapshot security issues, mitigate performance issues identified by AWS Trusted Advisor. Lab prerequisites: you should be familiar with the following: EC2 basics including volumes and snapshots, VPC basics including internet gateways, S3 basics including bucket policies. Lab environment. Before completing the lab instructions, the environment will look as follows. And after completing the lab instructions, the environment will look as follows. So first we have Trusted Advisor flagging some resources as not set up according to best practices. Then we will correct that. So let's start the lab. This first step of the lab, logging into the Amazon Web Services console, explains that we will use a sandbox temporary account for the duration of 1 hour with credentials as listed on the left: account, username, password, region, additional set of credentials to use where needed. And when we see ready for both cloud environment and bridge, then our lab infrastructure is fully ready. So let's jump right into the cloud environment. So let's enter IAM username and password from here. And sign in. Okay, let's double check our account ID. Let's copy paste it for just in case. Okay. Okay, we signed into management console. Now let's proceed according to the lab instruction. So let's read through this part. Understanding AWS Trusted Advisor. AWS Trusted Advisor is a cross-region service that inspects your AWS environments Trusted Advisor makes recommendations when opportunities exist to save money, improve system availability and performance, or help close security gaps. Trusted Advisor performs checks to identify the opportunities. The type of AWS account support plan in place determines how many checks AWS Trusted Advisor will perform. All AWS accounts benefit from 6 Trusted Advisor checks, while accounts with business or enterprise support plans have access to over 50 Trusted Advisor checks. Business support plans start at $100 per month. In this lab step, you will navigate the Trusted Advisor website. You will see what checks are included with all AWS accounts and see what checks are available with business or enterprise support plans. In the AWS Management Console, in the search bar at the top, enter Trusted Advisor and click the Trusted Advisor result. So let's read through all of this section. And when we finish reading it, let's switch then to the Management Console to do the hands-on part. So we'll search in the Management Console for Trusted Advisor. You will see the Trusted Advisor recommendations. From here, you get a quick snapshot of Trusted Advisor's recommendations in each of the 4 categories checked by Trusted Advisor. The 6 checks included without a support plan fall under the performance and security categories. Under each category, the number of checks that fall into each recommendation status category are shown. The recommendation statuses by color are: red means action recommended, yellow investigation recommended, and gray excluded items. Note, the check summary may differ based on the available checks and the time of the last refresh. And the navigation pane contains all the different check categories. Scroll down to recommended actions. Observe that each check has download result and the refresh check buttons on the right. Refresh operations can only be performed once every 5 minutes. The Trusted Advisor will automatically refresh all checks when you load the Trusted Advisor website. As a result, your refresh buttons may be inoperable up to 5 minutes. Click the Download Result button for the Amazon S3 bucket permissions check and open the downloaded XLS file. This downloaded check result spreadsheet shows the number of resources checked and lists individual flagged resources. Flagged resources are those with a yellow or red status. Click the Refresh button for the Amazon S3 bucket permissions check. Trusted Advisor will begin performing the check-in response. The checks can be performed once every 5 minutes this way. After a minute, the check will complete. The amount of time since the last check will be listed. Scroll to the top of the dashboard page and notice the Refresh All and Download All Results buttons available. Trusted Advisor will automatically perform all the checks without manual intervention. This feature is useful because you can trigger CloudWatch events to send you emails when the status of a check changes. However, the intervals for each check vary greatly. You can easily get the latest check results in the AWS Management Console by clicking the Refresh All button. Similarly, if you want to export a report with all check results at once, the Download All Results button is available to you. Note CloudWatch events for trusted advisor requires a business or enterprise support plan. Navigate to recommendations, then cost optimization. Although trusted advisor doesn't perform the checks without a support plan, you can see all of the checks included in each category this way. If you have extra time at the end of the lab, you can review the checks included with a business or enterprise support plan. With such a support plan in place, the cost optimization category will also include an estimate of the savings you can achieve by implementing trusted advisor's recommendations. Navigate to recommendations, performance and recommendations, fault tolerance, and briefly review the types of checks available with a business or enterprise support plan. Summary: in this lab step, you learned about trusted advisor checks categories and check status categories. You also learned trusted advisor behaves differently depending on the level of your AWS support plan. So here we don't have anything to validate, but let's go through trusted advisor interface and browse around a bit, then switch to the step 3 of the lab following S3 bucket permissions best practices. There we'll have one validation check. So here we'll search for trusted advisor and let's bookmark it. Now we can easily come to it from here. So here, comparing to the lab, we only have one recommended actions, MFA on root account. Maybe we should give the lab a couple of more minutes for it to load. So we have the S3 check here in yellow, right? See what the lab stated. The lab stated Amazon S3 bucket permissions check should be in yellow. Also we have some others like VPC internet gateways should be in yellow. The screenshot here shows 2 recommended actions in red and 2 in yellow. Okay, after a bit, we now see 2 actions recommended and 2 investigations recommended. So summary of recommended actions are for MFA on root account finding, then security groups, specific ports unrestricted, Amazon S3 bucket permissions, and VPC internet gateways. And here we have the info section to upgrade to your AWS support plan to get all trusted advisor checks. Okay, from the left section, let's see what we have here. For cost optimization, it immediately states upgrade your AWS support plan to get all trusted advisor checks. We see here checks listed, but grayed out. Then for performance, security, fault tolerance, service limits. Okay, 3 are in security section, 1 yellow, 2 red, and service limits, there's 1 yellow, VPC internet gateways. Then operational excellence. Okay, let's see in preferences. Okay, you can disable trusted advisor. You have it enabled, and notifications. We can enable notifications and email recipients. You will receive the email notification if enabled for trusted advisor recommendations once a week if you add contacts in the account settings. Okay, let's proceed to this check Amazon S3 bucket permissions. Okay, last update 6 minutes ago, so that means we can click on this refresh arrow and you can download the check of Amazon S3 bucket permissions. Let's read through the description of this criteria. Amazon S3 bucket permissions check buckets in Amazon Simple Storage Service, Amazon S3, that have open access permissions or allow access to any authenticated AWS user. Bucket permissions that grant least access can result in higher than expected charges if objects in the bucket are listed by unintended users at a high frequency. Bucket permissions that grant upload-delete access create potential security vulnerabilities by allowing users to add, modify, or remove items in a bucket. And let's read through the recommended action. If a bucket allows open access, determine if open access is truly needed. For example, to host a static website, you can use Amazon CloudFront to serve the content hosted on Amazon S3. C. Restricting access to an Amazon S3 origin in the CloudFront developer guide. When possible, update the bucket permissions to restrict access to the owner or specific users. Use Amazon S3 block public access to control the settings that allow public access to your data. See setting buckets and object access permissions. Okay, here is our finding that we should investigate. Okay, this lab step requires no validations, but let's download the spreadsheet. Let's download this check. You see here, this is last updated 9 minutes ago. Okay. And this is how the finding looks like when we download the associated spreadsheet. Okay, let's leave it like this for this lab step. Let's switch to the next step. Following S3 bucket permissions best practices. In this lab step, you will investigate Trusted Advisor security recommendations for S3 bucket permissions. S3 bucket policies secure access to the objects located in buckets. The check looks for buckets in S3 that have open access permissions or allow access to any authenticated AWS user. Instructions: navigate to recommendations, security within Trusted Advisor. Click the triangle to the left of the Amazon S3 bucket permissions. Check to expand the details. The text describes the check criteria, provides useful additional resources, and a recommended action. You will take action on the S3 bucket to improve the AWS environment created for you by the Cloud Academy Lab environment. Scroll down to focus on the table in the check details. One bucket has been flagged due to the bucket policy allowing public access. Click on the bucket name to open up the bucket details in the S3 console. Note AWS will redirect you to the correct region in about 5 seconds. Select the Permissions tab, scroll down to the Bucket Policy section and click Edit to edit the bucket policy. Bucket policy, okay, written in JSON. Then we'll update the bucket policy to reflect the following. So we'll copy the code here. This change will remove the public read access to the bucket's objects by restricting the get object permission to the student user. Click Save Changes at the bottom of the page, return to the Amazon S3 bucket permissions table in Trusted Advisor and click the refresh icon to refresh the check. Note there may be a delay for the check to become clickable. You may also click refresh all checks at the top of the page if available. After the check refreshes, you should see the check is now green for Amazon S3 bucket permissions. Note, there may be a delay in the check reflecting green, and the check may need to be refreshed when possible again. Summary: in this lab step, you implemented best practices for S3 bucket permissions following Trusted Advisor's recommendations. So here we have one validations. Check that the bucket policy have been fixed. So let's test out this check right now to see if it will fail as we expect it to fail. Okay, it failed. We have hints here. Did you update the bucket policy correctly? Okay, let's do the hands-on part. So in Trusted Advisor, go to the Amazon S3 bucket permissions we previously saw. Click on it, Permissions tab, then update the bucket policy, copy the code, save changes, and refresh the checks. So previously we had a yellow mark next to it to investigate the check. Then we expect for it to be green after validation is performed, and here we'll check again to see if validations now passes. Let's switch to the management console. So here in Trusted Advisor, recommendations, security recommendations for the Amazon S3 bucket permissions. We see last updated 17 minutes ago. So we want refresh the check immediately, but after we update the policy. So bucket name, we have 35 minutes left in the lab, then 2 more steps and one of them with validations. Okay, now in this bucket we'll go to the permissions tab, then bucket policy, and update the principal essentially. Okay, let's edit bucket policy. Okay, let's select all and paste the new bucket policy. Save changes. Okay, we successfully edited the bucket policy. Let's refresh the check over here. It's checking now, and we expect after the check completes to see here green check mark. Okay, here we have status in green, and here still yellow. So let's switch to the dashboard. Okay, we still see here the yellow check mark on the title of the check, but in the table status shows green check marks. So let's see if we run the validation check in the lab again. What will it show? Maybe it will recognize the fix has been implemented. Yeah, it shows as expected, but let's try to refresh this page. When we refresh the page, it then shows 1 now, investigation recommended instead of 2. Okay, so we don't have buckets anymore listed here among recommended actions. Let's proceed to the next lab step, following Snapshot best practices. Trusted Advisor provides 2 checks for snapshots: Amazon EBS public snapshots and Amazon RDS public snapshots. Snapshots can contain sensitive information that shouldn't be accessible to the public. Trusted Advisor will recommend taking action if it detects a public snapshot. In this lab step, you will follow the Trusted Advisor best practice for EBS snapshots. The process to resolve RDS public snapshot checks is similar to the process for resolving EBS snapshot checks. So the instruction is step 1, navigate to recommendations, security in Trusted Advisor, locate the Amazon EBS public snapshot check. A public EBS snapshot was created in this AWS account when the labs was started. You may see the check shows as green. Amazon EBS public snapshot. Let's see. Amazon EBS. Yeah, it's in red. Here shows 1 EBS snapshots are marked as public. This is because EBS and RDS snapshot checks are refreshed at Amazon discretion several times per day, and they can't be refreshed manually in the Trusted Advisor console. If a check hasn't occurred since you started the lab, the public EBS snapshot won't have been detected by Trusted Advisor yet. You can still complete the rest of this lab step and see how to resolve the issue that would cause this check to be read. Yeah, that explains why this step does not have a validation, because these checks are refreshed several times per day automatically, can be refreshed manually by us. Third step, click on the triangle to expand the details. Fourth, navigate to the EBS snapshot section of the Amazon EC2 console. Note, if you see the Trusted Advisor check is red, you can click the Snapshot ID link to go directly to the Amazon EC2 console. Snapshot ID link, okay. The snapshot contains important data that should not be exposed to the public. You will take action to limit the availability of the snapshot. If the snapshot was determined to be intentionally exposed to the public, no further action would be needed. To verify that the snapshot is currently public, with the snapshot selected, click the Snapshot Setting tab. Okay, we see here share permissions are public. Then we will click Modify Permissions. In the Modify Permissions dialog, select the Private Radio button, click Add Account, enter the following, and click Add. AWS account number, some arbitrary account number. Okay, then we will see it listed among shared accounts. You happen to know that the snapshot needs to be shared with that particular account. If you don't add permission, the snapshot is only available to your current AWS account. Click Modify Permissions. At this point, the Trusted Advisor check would detect no problems with the snapshot. Note, until it is possible to refresh the check manually, there is no way to verify this except by waiting until an automatic refresh. Summary: in this lab step, you learned about Trusted Advisor's snapshot checks. You took action to resolve a security issue identified with a snapshot created for you by the Cloud Academy lab environment. So although there are no validations for us here, we can proceed, of course, to the next step, which requires validations. With validations, let's do this lab step in the management console. Although we cannot verify manually. So in the management console, first recommended actions, Amazon EBS public snapshot. Yeah, we see it grayed out. Others over here can be refreshed. This one cannot. Though we can download the check. So let's see the details. So this check checks the permission settings for your Amazon EBS Elastic Block Store volume snapshots and alerts you if any snapshots are publicly accessible. When you make a snapshot public, you give all AWS accounts and users access to all the data on the snapshot. If you want to share a snapshot with particular users or accounts, mark the snapshot as private and then specify the user or accounts you want to share the snapshot data with. Please note that if you have block public access enabled in block all sharing mode, your public snapshots will not be publicly accessible and will not show up in the results of this check. Note: results for this check are automatically refreshed several times a day, and refresh requests are not allowed. It might take a few hours for changes to appear. Recommended action: unless you are certain you want to share all the data in the snapshot with all AWS accounts and users, modify the permissions, mark the snapshot as private, and then specify the accounts that you want to give permissions to. For more information, see sharing an Amazon EBS snapshot. Use block public access for EBS snapshots to control the settings that allow public access to your data. Note: for temporary technical reasons, items in this check cannot be excluded from view in the Trusted Advisor console. To modify permissions for your snapshots directly, you can use a runbook in the AWS Systems Manager console. For more information, see AWS support, modify EBS snapshot permission. So in this table, let's click on this snapshot ID with the failing status. Okay, snapshot ID. Let's see details for this snapshot. Click on its ID. Then let's modify these public share permissions. Click on private radio button and add account from the lab instruction, some arbitrary account number. And click on modify permissions. Let's verify. Okay, now we see it's private. That should be sufficient. Let's see if we refresh the page. Refresh the page, last updated an hour ago. We'll have to give it a bit for the check to update the refresh with automatic refresh of the check. So we'll have to give it a bit for an automatic refresh of this check. Let's proceed to the last lab step, following service limits best practices. And we have one validation check here. Let's read through the lab step. Trusted Advisor includes service limits checks in its free tier. The checks inspect multiple services across AWS regions and identify services that are within 80% of the maximum allowed value for your AWS account. These checks help mitigate the problem of not being able to create resources when you need them because you're at the service limit. Trusted Advisor lets you be proactive about capacity planning. You will learn more about the checks and follow Trusted Advisor's recommendation in this lab step. Instructions. Navigate to recommendations, service limits in Trusted Advisor. Any checks with recommendations are listed at the top. So we're looking for VPC Internet Gateways. If you see the following icon next to the check, then the check hasn't been refreshed recently. Kind of loading. At the let's see now. And currently we have a yellow alert kind of triangle. Second step, at the top, click refresh all checks. You will now see a warning icon next to the VPC Internet Gateways. In this lab, 4 Internet Gateways have been created during the lab setup. Click the black triangle next to VPC Internet Gateways and scroll down to the table. Internet Gateways. Oh, this is this black triangle. Okay. Okay, let's switch back to the lab instruction and let's read through this whole step. The table breaks the service limits down by region, limit amount, and current usage. You can see the cross-region nature of Trusted Advisor by observing the region column. Take a moment to observe the other service limits that are checked. Locate the service limit that Trusted Advisor recommends investigation of in the VPC Internet Gateway table. Is the US West 2 Internet Gateways service limit. Your account is using 80% of the limit, so Trusted Advisor recommends investigation. You can either free up resources or request a service limit increase. Click on the service quotas link above the table under recommended action. You will see the service request form and be notified that your student user is not authorized to request a service limit increase. In a production environment using your own AWS account, you would use this form to request an increase. AWS suggests using the phone contact method for 24/7 support. If the resource increase is urgent, it is very beneficial to receive notice from Trusted Advisor in advance. For this lab step, you will free up resources to mitigate the service limit risk. Navigate to VPC Internet Gateways. The list of Internet Gateways in your account is displayed. "15 of the Internet Gateways are detached and can be removed without any impact on your environment. Select the Internet Gateway named Prod IGW. Click Actions at the top and click Delete Internet Gateway. In the Delete Internet Gateway dialog, enter Delete in the confirmation text box and click Delete Internet Gateway. Return to Trusted Advisor and click the refresh button for the service limits check. After a few seconds, observe that Trusted Advisor recommends no actions. Note, due to delays internal to AWS, the refresh button may be grayed out for an unknown amount of time. However, the check is still functional. Summary. In this lab step, you explored the service limit checks in the Trusted Advisor. You saw how to request service limit increases from AWS and removed an internet gateway to reduce the service closest to the limit in the Cloud Academy lab environment. You have now followed the best practices recommended by all of the free Trusted Advisor checks. If you have time left in your lab environment, you can review additional checks that are included in Trusted Advisor with a business or enterprise support plan. So this validation, this is for validation check that an internet gateway has been removed. So if we run the check now, we expect it to fail. Then we will implement the fix and rerun this check. Now in the AWS Management Console, okay, let's do this part now hands-on. Okay. Let's read through the description here. This VPC Internet Gateways checks for usage that is more than 80% of the VPC Internet Gateways limit. Values are based on a snapshot, so your current usage might differ. Limit and usage data can take up to 24 hours to reflect any changes. In cases where limits have been recently increased, you may temporarily see utilization that exceeds the limit. And recommended action: if you expect to exceed the service limit, request an increase directly from the service quotas console. If service quotas doesn't support your service yet, you can create a support case in Support Center. We see that my user is not authorized to perform this operation to list services because no identity-based policy allows the service quotas list services action. Okay, that's my user for this specific lab. We can create a case, technically speaking. In this lab, it says you currently don't have necessary IAM permissions to view that support case, and we can learn more about that. But for this lab step, okay, let's see this for this region: US West 2, US West 2, US West 2, that's Oregon. Okay, it's causing issues, and over there, okay, US West 2, let's copy it, and let's here, do we have VPCs bookmarked? We have bookmarked. Let's click on it here. And internet gateways region, we said US West 2, Oregon. Okay, the 16 internet gateways. Let's search for rods. Okay, the one without 2. Currently detached shows. Let's see. Actions. Oh, to delete it. Let's delete it. Okay. And now, if in the Trusted Advisor we have it bookmarked here, so let's refresh the check. Refresh the check here. It's checking now. We see the table also loading. Okay, here we don't see it listed anymore. It's with warning status, though the icon here still globally shows exclamation mark, yellow warning sign. But let's see if the validation in the lab itself passes. That would be sufficient. Check again. 2 minutes left in this lab environment, no time for any error correction, and all validations passed. Great. So that will be all for this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this one. Until next video. Bye.